Welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of Flipside Focus. I am your host, Random Dude Josh, and with me, as always, my singing comrade, Johnny the Machine Hughes. Johnny, how are you?
I am very well. And what's this singing malarkey you're on about? Dude, I have got the voice of a tone-deaf angel.
But the audio guy sent me an email saying he's heard you sing a little bit.
No. Nah, he's full of it, man, that audio guy. Not even he can make me sound good when I sing.
Well, you know what? We'll have to take it up with him later today.
Let's do that later,
yeah. Yeah. We may have to get Al Mega in on this play mediator because I don't know.
Don't pay me enough to sing.
Fair enough. Well, I'm excited for today's episode.
Me
One,
too.
It's live. Two, we got a pretty kick-ass guest.
We have indeed.
So, I mean, you've talked to him before.
Yep, I had the pleasure of looking at a certain little indie book a little while ago called Spencer and Locke, and it ticked all my Calvin and Hobbes boxes. I'm a huge Calvin fan.
Mm-hmm.
Hobbes can be a bit of a pain in the ass, but you know,
well,
where you go, right? And from there, I went out and spoke to the writer-creator, none other than Mr. David Pepose.
David, welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing down there?
Super excited to be the Alice in this podcast. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm so excited to be on the show and catch up with you guys and to talk about a fun new project I have up on Kickstarter, the return of the OZ.
So what is the OZ for someone who's never heard of it? Tell us a little bit about. First off, what rock are you living under that you don't know about this awesome book?
Hey, the right time, if you missed our last campaign, is right now. The OZ is like, what if the Hurt Locker took place in the Wizard of Oz? It's about Dorothy Gale's granddaughter, who's a disillusioned Iraq War veteran who finds herself stranded in the war-torn land of Oz. And as she discovers her grandmother killing two wicked witches and convincing the Wizard of Oz to leave, and then clicking her heels together and splitting, left Oz in a power vacuum not unlike Baghdad, and plunged the country into decades of brutal civil war. And so now this new Dorothy will have to navigate her grandmother's former friends, the Tin Soldier, the Scarecrow, and the Prince of Lions, if she hopes to survive the horrors of the occupied zone.
Wait a minute. OZ? Man, I thought this was an OC sequel. I've got the wrong book. Yeah. Oh my God. What's that all about? I was expecting Platinum Planet and everything, but no.
We do have a healthy dose of soap opera, for anybody who is missing those OC vibes. But, if you like things like Mad Max Fury Road, The Old Guard, Fables, DMZ, Fallout, Chrono Trigger, Lord of the Rings, there's going to be a lot. We're drawing from a lot of influences on this book. And I think it's one of the best things, one of the best projects I've ever been involved in. And working with artist Ruben Rojas, colorist Whitney Kogar, letterer DC Hopkins, and a murderer's row of cover talent. I can't wait for people to join us in the trenches, become a Yellow Brick Road warrior, and sign up for the OZ.
So influences seem to be you kind of stock in trade, because we mentioned Calvin Hobbes.
Yeah,
we've mentioned Gone. You've had Going to the Chapel, which had Tarantino-esque vibes all the way through. I think, how is it you managed to and do it really successfully? You kind of mine those kind of influences to get your original idea out there. How do you kind of do that? Because other people would just be like, dude, this is from Mad Max. Dude, this is from that. Yeah,
right. So, I'm the guy. I can never say that I invented peanut butter or jelly. I'm just the idiot that kind of smashes them together. I'm always thinking, like, what's the next pineapple pizza I can come up with? Or where's the chocolate? Where's the peanut butter? How can I find two great tastes that you wouldn't associate and kind of put them together? And so for me, a lot of it is a numbers game. I come up with a lot of concepts. I probably come up with a new concept every couple of weeks. And I usually kind of let it sit for a while. because my secret is like 90% of the concepts I come up with that you'll never see. It's because they're bad. Like you I could come up with, Sesame Street meets The Wire, and that's funny. But
I am there.
Ooh, it'd be a fun book.
That's funny, but I don't have a high concept. I don't have a theme that's inherent to that premise.
It'd be a funny concept.
It's what?
The story of a machine that wears fishnets and sings.
Don't know what you're talking about. What are you on? What's it? I'm just in my head now. I'm thinking.
No, I was thinking about it too, and I was like, the math symbols are coming up over my head.
Yeah. Let's not go there. It's not Saturday yet.
For context, head over to Twitter. It'll make sense.
Okay. For me, it's always like, okay, I'm gonna smash some things together, and it's like, well, what makes sense? Where is there some surprising overlap for all of this? In the case of the OZ, I had come up with it. It was on the heels of my breakout book, Spencer and Locke, which was What If Calvin and Hobbes Grew Up in Sin City? And in retrospect, people seem to really like the book. But as I was working on it, as it was coming out, that was certainly not a sure thing. And I had no idea if I was going to write another comic after that. That's a flammable high concept, and you can't do it quietly. Everybody was watching because it was an Evel Knievel stunt jump, and they're like, is he going to stick the landing, or are we just going to watch somebody break their neck?
Well, to be fair, I mean, there was a sequel. That's how well you stuck the landing. You jumped the buses, then you went for the Grand Canyon. So
it was one of those things that after the first volume came out, I was like, okay, the dust has settled. People didn't turn on us. They liked the book. And that gave me permission to kind of say, all right, maybe I'll make a go at this. And I came up with 3 ideas kind of right off the bat. And one was Spencer and Locke 2. The second was Going to the Chapel, sort of my Die Hard meets Wedding Crashers book. And then I said, well, those are all crime books, and I want to try some different genres to establish some range and to do something at a different sense of scale. Here's the secret. Sci-fi is really hard for me. You got to be really smart to do sci-fi because your concept has to have some relation to the real world. You're making a product and trying to find a solution for it. Fantasy, on the other hand, the rules of the world can kind of bend around the theme of your story. It can kind of warp around a specific character and their voice. I really gravitate towards that. And so I started writing down just inspirations, just starting points, Piers Anthony, Lloyd Alexander, Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter. And I wrote down The Wizard of Oz. And wouldn't you know it, Google Docs got stuck. And as I was waiting for my cursor to kind of unfreeze, it was on the word Oz. And I looked at it and I was like, it's such a short word. What if that was an acronym for something? And I just started kind of running through random combinations, and I hit occupied zone. And it's like the idea hit me like a bolt of lightning. I was like, oh, this isn't just a fantasy story. It's a war story. And as I had been thinking about the actual Wizard of Oz, similar to, Spencer and Locke, where I said, why would Calvin need to so vividly hallucinate his own best friend? Maybe that's not a charming quirk. Maybe that's a symptom of a darker pathology. What was his upbringing like? Same thing for the Wizard of Oz. You kill 2 dictators and then dispose another figure of state and then leave. That's not a happy ending. We've seen that. I grew up during the invasion of Iraq.
We're living it now.
We're living it now. And realizing no, that's a power vacuum. There's no happy ending there. And what would happen to all these archetypical characters who have very strong personalities and skill sets and ways of navigating the world? What happens when that world starts falling on their heads? It tied into a lot of themes that I like to explore. I like to explore trauma in my work. I think it's something that it makes our books start off in a darker place, but it makes the arc about the redemptive climb out of that. Are you defined by your scars, or is there a way that if we can't banish them, can we live with them? So the OZ, it's been a long time coming. Like I said, we started work on it in 2017. Last year's Kickstarter was sort of our way of debuting it for the whole world. And we're so blown away by the response that we've been hard at work getting a critical mass of pages together for part 2.
I've got to ask, if I may.
Yeah.
Am I right to jump in, Josh?
No, go for it. Go for it.
Cheers, man. I've got to ask, Spencer and Locke, massive hit. Spencer and Locke 2, massive hit. Going to the Chapel, massive hit. Scouts Honor, totally different, still a massive hit.
Yeah.
Why the need for a Kickstarter now? Surely you have name recognition.
Well, it was one of those things that keeping in mind just the timing of it all. I've been working on the OZ for a while. We'd actually talked with a publisher about it, and timing is such a big part of the pitching process that I think a lot of people overlook. There's so many good projects like the OZ that they get pitched and just the timing is not right.
Yeah.
And so what happened was we were at the 1 yard line with a big name publisher, and somebody else had pitched a fantasy war series right at the same time.
Name them.
And it's one of those things that it was a more established creative team. I don't begrudge them, and the book was great. But what was really great was the editor that I had been working with. They reached out afterwards and they said, "Listen, I know this is disappointing, but I really want you to know this was not about the strength of your pitch. Like this is not a knock on. This was a very good pitch, and it was just the timing wasn't right. But I really encourage you to keep working on this one because it's got legs." And that encouragement was really all I needed. Shortly thereafter, I met Ruben Rojas. I found him on Twitter answering a call for artists, and I had 3 ideas in my pocket at the time. It was the OZ, my upcoming Top Cow book, Grand Theft Astro, and then another project that actually is going to be getting kind of a second life later on. Hopefully, I'll be able to discuss that later this year or early next year. And Ruben, I did not know at the time, his favorite genres are post-apocalyptic and low fantasy. And so he immediately gravitated towards the OZ.
Handmade glove.
Exactly. And, it's one of those things that, meanwhile, I had friends who had done Kickstarters. Charlie Stickney from White Ash is mine.
Love White Ash. Love White Ash.
Terrific series. Ryland Grant, he had done books like Peacekeepers and The Jump on Kickstarter. Russell Nahelty, Pat Shand, Clay Adams, who all have a laundry list.
Love Pat Shand.
Terrific group of people. And they've all were telling me, you should really do a Kickstarter. And my first instinct was exactly what you had, Johnny, where I was like, well, I've been doing direct market stuff. Is there a reason for me?
Hey, look at me. I'm a big man. I don't need Kickstarter. No way.
Just I didn't want to encroach in a space that wasn't meant for me. And the thing that Charlie said that really kind of made the light bulb go off was he's like, there are some people who there's a tiny bit of overlap, between Kickstarter backers and the direct market people. But the vast majority of Kickstarter backers are not going to step into a comic shop. Just like there's some people who primarily buy their books at a comic shop, and some who buy them primarily on Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Comixology, and some who buy them exclusively at cons. There's some people that primarily buy their comics on crowdfunding. And that was a whole other demographic that I had done no outreach to. And for me, it was a big light bulb moment where I was like, oh, there's a whole readership diaspora. And it's really incumbent upon every creator to try to reunite that disparate readership and invite them to the same table. That's, I think, how we survive existentially in a fragmented media landscape. And so, meanwhile, we had the OZ, we were building up a nice head of steam. We had 2 issues in the can, and I had almost finished writing the entire series at the time. And then the pandemic happened, and Diamond had their shutdown, and all these publishers, their acquisitions channels dried up. Everybody was sort of in defensive mode, figuring out how do we survive the next year. And I realized at that moment, I could solve one problem with the other. I could give the OZ a really fun and vibrant home and introduce ourselves to the Kickstarter community with our absolute A game. And so, at a time of real uncertainty, we kind of tried out a new platform to see how it would work. And I think, first off, there's going to be a lot of cross-pollination. I think we're going to see more and more of it. We're seeing it with Substack right now, because I do think a lot of bigger name creators, they don't have time to pack books for 3 weeks. And so they're trying to figure out the pros and cons of every platform. Me, I don't mind hunkering down for 3 weeks and sending out 1,000 packages from my 2-bedroom.
That's called the fulfillment center nowadays.
Yes. We moved, so now we have a 3rd bedroom. So now,
hey, there you go. That's a warehouse. Hey.
But it was one of those things that I'm so thrilled we did it, because I feel like it put together the last missing pieces for me learning as a comics creator. There's always room to grow and always room to develop, but I had worked on writing, obviously, and I'd worked on sort of the editorial side with Spencer and Locke and Going to the Chapel. I was kind of the guy coordinating all the moving parts. And I'd done my own publicity, obviously learning, from those books. But I didn't know, I'd never worked with a printer before. I had never figured out how to do, distribution and shipping. Now I have those pieces in my arsenal, and I'm able to. I don't have to wait for permission anymore to tell a story, and I'm able to do this on a platform that oftentimes is just as financially equitable, if not oftentimes more financially equitable than terms that you'd find in the direct market. These are artisanal comics coming straight from the source. And so there is a slightly higher price point that we've been working really hard to make sure readers feel like they're getting their money's worth out of that.
In comparison to mainstream books, if you're paying $4.99 for a Kickstarter and you're paying $4.99 for a big 2 book, I know where the value and the money's going. Doesn't take a rocket science to work that one out.
Well, exactly. It's like for us, you can spend $10, you can get a PDF of the OZ. It's a double-sized issue, 44 pages. We also are giving the first PDF of Spencer and Locke #1 and Going to the Chapel #1. So that's 88 pages just from me. You get my script, you get Ruben's raw inks, you get Whitney's untouched colors, any stretch goals that we add in the mix. We're coming close to our first stretch goal right now, which is a digital comics extravaganza. It's going to be at least another 200 pages of bonus comics from just like a murderer's row of talent. Justin Jordan, Rylan Grant, Clay Adams, Kat Kalamia, just to name a few, Eric Palicki. And so, already for those $10, you're getting 300 pages of content on top of any extra stretch goals we throw into the mix. That's what we're trying to do. And so we're trying to meet our readers where they're at, both in terms of access and in terms of budget. So, if you want to throw down 10, you get that. If you want to throw down more money, we've got, things like a Skype session with me. If you want to talk about your scripts or running a
wait. I have to pay for this conversation. You didn't tell me that.
But we got that. You got commissions from Ruben Rojas, our artist. You can get drawn into the book. We've got even some ultra limited edition. We had some handmade Spencer and Locke plushies made for the creative team.
That's cool.
And so we have 2 left.
How'd you get one of those?
Yeah.
Or have to kill.
If you're a fan of Scout's Honor, as you saw in our first issue, it's the book about a post-apocalyptic Boy Scout cult. And so as sort of a retailer incentive, we made actual Ranger Scout merit badges, things like hand-to-hand combat, explosives, tactical driving. 7 of those were distributed via retailers. However, there are 7 more that do exist. Some of them are exclusives like Comics Pro. Some of them, I think, are planned for conventions. I think one might even be exclusive to Aftershock and Aftershock staffers. However, go ahead.
I was going to say, for the merit badges, is the one to hide your gender identity. Is that one?
Yeah. Well, that's really the theme. It's the theme of the book. I
know. I've read it.
I know.
The great thing about this Kickstarter is this is the only place we have 2 more sets of all 14 badges straight from my collection. So if you want to be the ultimate Ranger Scout as well as the ultimate Yellow Brick Road Warrior, this is the place to do it. And so, and meanwhile, we've got all sorts of things in the middle as well. We've got 4 covers for this issue. We've got a bundled set where you get all 4 covers for the price of 3. Or if you missed our last campaign and you're a diehard collector, you can get all 9 covers that we've released, I think, for the price of $7.50. So it's, we're trying to offer people a lot of discounts. If you missed their first campaign, you can just get the first 2 issues. We've got catch-up tiers in print and digital. Plus all of my trade paperbacks, like we were talking about, Spencer and Locke 2, Going to the Chapel, Scout's Honor. We've got package sets where you can get them all at discount, or we will be offering a backer kit store at the end of the campaign, so you can buy them individually a la carte. And plenty of other cool stretch goals that we haven't announced yet. But if you liked our enamel pins, if you liked our stickers, if you liked our prints, if you liked our theme song that we did last time, you may want to back and share the campaign.
Singing.
Heart of Tin by the band Bed Death. Just really soulful, moody song. We have it on our YouTube channel. All of our backers got it for free in the last campaign, and we might be working on something a little similar for part 2.
Very good.
I'm curious now, with this being your second Kickstarter, what things have you learned from the first one to now that have brought you to where you're at? Like, what sort of things have you changed, if any?
Sure. Yeah, there've been a few things that I've changed. I mean, part of it was just simplifying the rewards a little bit. Because now that there's 2 issues, you have to really kind of cater to both returning readers and new readers, and so that's already complicated enough. So we really streamlined our rewards, that it's books and then a couple of premier items that are kind of rare, but really refocusing on the book side of things. Any other sort of add-on items, they will be add-ons, and we'll reveal them as our stretch goals continue. The other thing though was the last campaign, I came to it from a very conservative place. We set up a goal that was really as low as I felt comfortable with, knowing that like I paid for all the production, I'm going to pay for printing, I'm going to pay for shipping. It's not so much getting back into the black, but it's how deep in the red do I feel comfortable being in?
Yeah.
And, at the same time, I was thinking, how do we raise $6,000 in 30 days? That was my mindset. There was never in my mind, what happens if you raise that in 2 hours, which is what happened. And so we spent the rest of the campaign, I was playing catch up. I was like, how do we keep, enhancing our rewards? How do we keep adding value to the mix? How do we keep the excitement going for 30 days? All these cool, stretch goals and publicity. And now, I spent the last year not just preparing for failure, but also preparing for success. What happens if we fund? And so that's why we've been planning some really cool stretch goals to keep adding things to the mix without messing up our production timeline, without blowing our shipping budget. And so, that has been a really good learning experience. And the other thing has been figuring out how to play by Kickstarter's rules a little bit more. I used to work in publicity and PR, and so I know how to promote a book, especially in the direct market. You do a publicity blitz, you talk to as many people who are willing to have you, and you practice your stump speech. For Kickstarter, however, especially because there's a gap between the Kickstarters. We launched almost a year to the day after our last Kickstarter. But there are a lot of outlets who obviously, like, it's no knock on them. They're like, well, it's a second issue. Do we really have the time and the bandwidth to cover that? And so the thing is that publicity is not the only weapon in your arsenal on Kickstarter. You're able, it's really a community. And so you want to collaborate with other campaigns. You want to signal boost other books, because ultimately, like, not everybody's going to see your book. And so by sort of having your Kickstarter class all come together, you're able to cross-pollinate a little bit. And between that and, being aggressive on social media, like not badgering people, but just like a numbers game, if I haven't done this, but like, I'm sure if you just like programmed a bunch of tweets to go out every hour, with just #comics, #Kickstarter, here's your link. If you did that for 30 days, you'd fund. I have no doubt in my mind, people would see what you were doing, So it's really, just figuring out, how do we keep things fresh and how do we get the word out? And, so far I've been really happy with it. We've got about, we had 1,250 backers last go round, and we just cracked 600 in our third day today. And so far, just early on in the campaign, we've already had a third of our previous backers come back, plus an extra 25% of our new readers, which is fantastic. And, over 26 more days, we have a long runway to go. And as more and more of our OZ backers from our last campaign, there's a lot going on. People get a lot of Kickstarter things. Not everybody knows that we're back. Yeah. And so, as they keep seeing our updates and be like, oh, well, maybe I guess they're back, and they come back, the ceiling can only grow.
Yeah. So we got a question from Almega, who's watching on YouTube. He said, as an established creator, what is the most difficult part of the crowdfunding journey?
I think the most difficult part, it's just keeping momentum building over the course of those 30 days. I mean, the first 2 days are, and the last 2 days are kind of givens that, Kickstarter will sort of promote you through the algorithm. It's sort of what happens in those 26 days in the middle. And so, it's doing as many podcasts and interviews as you can. It's, tweeting as much as you can, being, for me, I always back things on, it's how many followers do we have? Are we about to hit a milestone there? What percentage funding are we about to hit? Are we about to hit that? Are there any stretch goals that we can promote? Soon we'll be probably rolling out social stretch goals again. Just how many tweets can we get on our main OZ thing before we roll out some other cool stuff. It's the pressure is off a little bit compared to the first one because people know the book exists. They seem to have liked the concept, and so you do have to trust Kickstarter's mechanisms a little bit more. That they want your book to succeed, and it's their business model. They take a cut, so they want it to succeed as much as possible. And so you have to be like, well, they're sending out a lot of emails, and they mention a lot of different books. You hope yours is one of them.
Yeah.
But beyond that, just knowing that, it's a second Kickstarter, and so you try not to go into it with too many expectations. And so far, it's blown through every expectation I've had, and we're just getting started. So the future is very much looking bright for that book.
Cool. Do you do a lot of research in relation to the stretch goals? Because I mean, some of the ideas are really great, like the pins and the merit badges for scouts and so on. I see so many different, because Josh and I, we love Kickstarters. We talk about them all the time on Flipside. And we see like a wide range of different things. What is it? How do you kind of dial down to what you think that the reader would want?
For me, so I've seen this happen in a couple of Kickstarters, and it's sort of the kiss of death. Is getting too ambitious with the extra rewards or the stretch goals, because first and foremost, I'm selling a book first, and and I want to make sure that that's not, nothing is distracting from that. Yeah. But for example, I have a buddy who is like very gung ho about like, you should do statues, and I'm like, statues are so expensive and they are so hard to ship, and I think that's really that's the framework you have to work within. Is I'm sending most of my books either in Gemini mailers or priority mailboxes. And so it has to fit within one of these things. And especially thinking about international shipping. I mean, international shipping, the prices have skyrocketed since our last campaign. And I apologize to any of our international backers. Last Kickstarter, I'll admit, we took a bath on international shipping. It was my first time. I had never shipped books before. And so I thought, $25 blanket international. I'm sure that'll work. And realizing that no, that does not work for the majority of countries. And so many of our international shipping last time, we actually sent us at a loss, because some of these countries, it was double or even triple that, when you hit a certain weight and you're going to a certain country. And so this time we really did our homework. We're working with Pirate Shipping. They're really a fantastic partner in terms of helping us get all of our labels out at a discounted price. And so we price checked every single reward tier based on weight with every single country that backed us last time. So I know the only complaints we've ever gotten coming back out of the gate is, why is international shipping so expensive? And I'm like, I promise I know.
You have no control over that, definitely.
But,
it's one of the things we talk about. We say, look, because Josh, the way it works on Flipside, we both pick a Kickstarter. We say, right, we really like this, I really like that. And one of our crevases, we always say, because obviously we're an international show, check the international shipping, because you've got to think, if you can't afford the price to get the book shipped,
it's expensive.
You can still back it, just get the PDF.
Exactly. And that's part of the reason why we've made it, a point to, we want to make sure that we have the digital options available, because I get it. Like, international shipping is not cheap, and the international shipping prices that we've gotten not only are discounted, but will probably be out of date by the time we ship all this. So I will still be taking a minor loss on a lot of these. And that's totally, I get it. But I want
just the nature of the beast, unfortunately.
It's the nature of the beast. We're not making up the prices is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I feel like, seeing the international backers already coming back, and many of them are we get it. It's expensive. But they support, they believe in the book. And that really means something to me. And I think, it's been a year since the last Kickstarter. we've built a really nice critical mass of pages. Ruben is finishing up the back half of this double-sized second issue now, and these pages are beautiful. It is 100% going to be worth the wait. Because last issue we established Dorothy, we established the occupied zone. We had our vegetables, we did all the exposition. Now that everything's been set up, we really get to put the pedal to the metal and floor it. And so we get to explore. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, and I wanted to kind of bring that up, and if you're okay with it, I'm actually going to bring up the Kickstarter. I've got it right here.
Yeah.
Talking about the artwork, I mean, I love the use of the colors.
Thank you.
How it really kind of has that gritty feel.
Mm-hmm.
Even when Dorothy is, in the world of Oz, it looks and feels like a war zone.
Thank you. Whitney Kogar is such a talented colorist. You might know her from the Eisner Award-winning Giant Days, but this is obviously very different than her work on Giant Days. Mm-hmm. And Whitney came recommended to me from Michael Mocchio, a former editor at Boom Studios. He used to be one of my freelancers at Newsarama. He's now over at Universal. And I had said, I need to find the right colorist for Ruben. That they say art makes or breaks your comic, but colors make or break your art. So you have to find the right colorist for the right line artist. And Whitney just immediately got it. Usually I'm kind of ruthless with my colorist, and usually the very first colorist I approach winds up not being the colorist that stays in the book, because they have to look right with the line artist. Whitney just hit the ground running. We talked a lot about what's the Mad Max version of Star Wars look like. Sort of you got a little bit of the post-apocalyptic vibe, but Star Wars has all these different worlds with all these very unique palettes and very unique temperatures, and you can tell the difference between a Hoth or a Coruscant or an Endor or a Tatooine, and you get a sense of what the vibe and the dangers and the high concepts of these worlds are. That's something that we're trying to emulate with the OZ. And Whitney's done such a terrific job, each of these locales having a different vibe to them. Mm-hmm. So no, she's our secret weapon. And I love working with Whitney. And this will not be the last book that I work on.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that I love about just what you've put up on Kickstarter, whenever we hear of Oz, we think back to all the bright colors and everything like that. And the way that this story is, that it's a post-apocalyptic Oz, we're not going to get that. And I feel both in the art and the colors, as you said, there's that balance, and so it really has that gritty, like, oh shit feeling.
Yeah, and just wait, the great thing about having a preview, especially as long as the ones that we have up on the Kickstarter, you're getting to see the action starting to ramp up, but you ain't seen nothing yet. And just we're giving you guys a taste. I feel like I always try to offer a quarter of what I'm selling. I don't want to skimp. I want people to see that we're putting our money where our mouth is, and that honestly, I'm the weak link here. How amazing the rest of the team is. It certainly takes the pressure off my shoulders. Even if I wrote just random nonsense, Ruben Rojas and Whitney Kogar are terrific. And so, people can see this book, I think, goes toe to toe with anything in the direct market, at least in terms of looks. And so, I think the art really does speak for itself, and I think it really does sell the book.
It's when you mentioned DC Hopkins, I looked at one of his books this week, actually, Second Chance, which is out now in comic books stores. Go check it out. And I was absolutely blown away how he could use a very simple font on a black and white style book, and
David is a sweetheart.
He just made it work so well.
I think he's one of the most gracious people I've ever met in the industry. He and I actually we met again through Michael Mocchio. David worked with Mike over at Boom Studios, and he came up to me at Denver Comic-Con a couple years back, and he was like, "Oh, hey, we have a mutual friend, and I keep hearing about Spencer and Locke. I'd love to read it." And we got to talking, and he's such a sweetheart that I was like, "Well, we have to work together on something." And I actually told DC Hopkins this no sooner than yesterday. He is just my favorite letterer to work with. He's so patient and generous, and just just a real team player. And yet he also kind of keeps the whole book on the rails. There's that phrase, there's the movie you write, the movie you shoot, and the movie you edit. In comics, it's the comic you write, the comic that's drawn, and the comic that's lettered. And so, he really is the final guardrail of making sure that, I'm not overwriting, that the verbiage I'm using is not overwhelming the art. And sometimes, I see a line when it's written down on the page. I'm like, oh, that line didn't work. All right, we got to I got to rethink it. And he's just a real, a real mensch in being so patient and making sure that like the book comes out in the best possible way. We've had like a really cool kind of positive feedback loop for the whole book, that anytime another member of the team sort of drops off their contribution, the rest of us get super excited, and it sort of inspires us to really bring our A game.
Step up to the plate a bit.
And I'm lucky, I finished writing the book last year. And so, for me now it's all the fun stuff. I'm the editor on the book, but I just get art now, and I'm like, Christmas. I already ate all my vegetables. I wrote the script, and so, seeing that artwork coming in, it's really rewarding, and it shows that I put my faith in the right people to pull off what I think is a spectacular looking book.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm super excited to see, everything that's going to continue. I mean, the fact that you've got 26 days to go, you've already surpassed your goal. And that's been one thing that we've always mentioned on the show.
Definitely.
For people who are maybe not sure about the project, is, if it's fully funded and you've got so much longer to go, it's the best time. You're guaranteed to get the book.
You will get the book.
You will get the extra benefits of stretch goals, and it's going to be a complete package. And so to see where you guys are at, just 4 days in,
it's bonkers.
with 26 days to go. As you said, the glass ceiling can only get higher. Sky's the limit at this point.
So. For me, it's funny. I mean, like, I know Kickstarter is very much sort of it looks like a numbers game, especially in terms of the finances. This is the worst thing to say as like a commercial writer, but like at the end of the day, like the money does not matter to me, because it's only going to go towards rent, kibble, and paying for more art for more projects. Like it's not like I'm not going to Scrooge McDuck this, but for me, it's about the reader number. Like that's the reason I did Kickstarter, was the interactivity with the readership, especially, I missed cons, and I still miss cons. I'm doing Rose City Comic Con next month, assuming the, COVID numbers cooperate. But, it is really kind of like the ultimate digital convention. You get to interact with your readership. You get to I get to do my Carnival Barker thing in terms of, just heavily promoting the project, and seeing how excited and enthusiastic the readership is over something like this. Because I will say, Kickstarter, in a way that the direct market isn't able to emulate, the projects really do exist because of the backers, and so, the OZ, the Kickstarter community was the ones that put their money where their mouth was. People keep asking, do you have any plans for this going to another publisher? And I'm like, we don't have any plans at this time. Because for me, the number one concern, the number one priority is fulfilling this through Kickstarter first. The community backed us, and we owe them that much, and that's the reason why I haven't released any other projects on Kickstarter, even though I've got stuff that could be ready to go. We could have launched another Kickstarter 6 months ago. However, I don't want people to think I'm greedy. Like the OZ is the priority right now, and
so it's interesting because the dynamic's totally different, isn't it? If you publish your book through like Dark Horse or Image or whatever, you're waiting for them to, because it's sale or return, so they go to comic book shops and you don't know what's going to happen to them. On Kickstarter, it's the other way around. It's the customer saying, "I want this book, give me my book." So that must be like instant gratification.
Very much so. Yeah. It's also the thing I like about Kickstarter, and I think it's part of the reason why the platform works so well, is accessibility. You can order a book on your phone, It takes 30 seconds. And I can tell you, as somebody who's had to explain to his parents how to order a book through Diamond, it's a lot. There's a lot of hoops to jump through, and there's no one person at fault here, but it's like you call your comic, you have to get the code, you have to call your comic shop 3 months in advance. They have to order it, they have to remember to order it, and then it has to come in undamaged, and they have to have not sold it to somebody else. And that's a lot of hoops to jump through in 3 months. So Kickstarter, is great because you just send them a link. They click it and it's ordered. And when the book's ready, it'll arrive. Usually they forget they've ordered it. And then it's like a nice surprise when the book shows up. But it's very easy. There's very few obstacles to do this. I think the only obstacle I've seen so far is I had a Canadian backer tell me that their zip code wasn't being accepted in Kickstarter because their zip code has has letters in it. That's like, if that's the hardest thing, one Canadian backer telling me this, I get it, and I do think it kind of, we're seeing a new kind, it does remind me of a hybrid now of sort of, we're seeing the direct market and we're seeing Substack as sort of a big competitor at this point. And I think Kickstarter kind of hits that sweet spot in between the two of them, is that you're able to have that online accessibility. And yet, if you want that physical artifact, you're able to get it. And so it really is, it's the best of both worlds. And I think a really wonderful way to build your readership, especially as an independent creator. And it's certainly not to say that like I'm abandoning the direct market. Far from it. I mean, not only are we offering retailer tiers at 50% discount for this book, but, I have other books in the works in the direct market. And I think similar to the way that people used to see, I think comics people are trained to see things as binary when they're not necessarily, down to like Marvel versus DC or, licensed books versus creator owned. And I think now I've been as a creator long enough that I'm realizing, no, it's not an or, it's an and. You need to be using both. That's sort of, they force multiply on each other. I'm hoping that people who saw my work in Spencer and Locke, I think a lot of them came back to the Kickstarter, and then hopefully they got introduced to Scout's Honor. And the people who, didn't know any of my work, who came in from Scout's Honor, I'm hoping they're seeing the OZ and being like, oh, let me get the rest of David's work. And, I plan on going back and forth. I plan on using Kickstarter for the foreseeable future in conjunction with direct market work.
It's interesting because a couple of things. You say comic readers are kind of trained to be binary.
Yeah.
Like big two versus indie, or licensed book versus creator owned. Sure. At this stage of the big two market, I would pretty much say that anything that's big two published is in itself its own licensee.
Sure.
Because you never know where it's going to cross media and become that next big thing. Yeah. So the other thing I kind of would say is that you're right. Scout, it's been quite diverse when you think about it. Because Spencer and Locke is that kind of Calvin Hobbes type of comedy meets dysfunction.
Yeah.
And then you've got Go to the Chapel, which was a bit of a riot book. There's humor in there. Scout's Honor it's like a true change of pace book, I think.
Yeah.
And I think that pretty much correlates to, I'm going to have to say the OZ when I'm British, the OZ.
Yeah.
There you go.
I did an interview with somebody who was British the other day, and I was like,
which other Brit are you talking to? Come on. I thought it was like a see, Josh.
You're like, you're dead to me.
This is that awkward moment where I'm just like, so the OZ, so Scouts and OZ seem completely different from like the riot element. So how is that you taking like I don't want to say more mature because humor can be mature. Is that you taking kind of like a different strand and kind of thinking to yourself, well, hold on, not every book has to be
right. It was one of those things that it's funny because Scout's Honor, especially, like there were some things that were deliberate and some things that were chosen. so working with Aftershock was the first time I'd worked with a publisher outside of Action Lab. It's the first time I worked with editors, really. I mean, Action Lab, and that's not a knock against them. They just don't have the scale to begin with. But it's, when they were editing it, it was more of like, can this be printed? Like, is this literally printable, like on a CMYK level, or checking for spelling errors? I coordinated all the editorial stuff to make the book happen. And Aftershock was the first time I worked with editors, and I had pitched them actually several stories. Certain publishers, they want just like whatever outline you have, send it, and we'll say thumb up, thumb down. But some publishers like Aftershock or Boom, they prefer log lines. They say, listen, give us like a couple of ideas that you might be interested in fleshing out for us, and we'll pick what we like best. And so I had a couple. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say something sarcastic, but I managed to bite my tongue.
I sent them probably like a dozen ideas. Lee Kramer made the mistake of being like, well, just send us what you got. And I was like, you will regret that.
One hard drive later. There you go.
And so Scout's Honor actually had been the most recent idea I'd come up with. I'd come up with that concept like a week and a half prior to me sending that. And of course, that's the one that Aftershock picked. And my immediate gut reaction was, oh crap, they picked the one that I had done no homework on. And they had picked the one that I was like, the idea of sort of the Mulan elements of that, of our lead character Kit having to conceal her identity as a woman in order to pursue her calling as a Ranger Scout, that was not in the original logline. I was just like, oh crap, they picked the Boy Scout book, and that's going to be super weird. I pitched it in 2019. So it's going to be super weird in 2020 to have an all dude book, And then I realized, like, no, lean into that. That is weird. Like, what would it be like for a woman, to have to navigate that kind of society, or anyone of the LGBTQ community to navigate this society of toxic masculinity. And so, it was definitely a different book. It was a challenging one to write. I think it's, every book has its own challenges, but that one is especially, it felt like we were walking a high wire, to make sure that we were being respectful and compassionate towards our characters and our readers, but also speaking truly about, sort of that political and spiritual reawakening that so many of us have. That's part of becoming an adult. It certainly was a big thing for me. I've said this in a lot of interviews, but I was raised in a very conservative upbringing in the Midwest, in a Jewish household. And it wasn't until I left home that a lot of stuff that had been sort of preached to me as gospel didn't really stand up under scrutiny, under reality, and how disorienting it was to sort of stay true to my values, but realizing like, this is, a lot of this stuff is nonsense, growing up in that Fox News bubble. And that's Kit's journey. It's sort of what parts of her religion, of her upbringing, of the Ranger Scout way of life, what's positive, what's worth keeping, and what's the stuff that's too toxic to remain. And how do you remove that? How do you extract that from yourself? And what do you replace that with? And it was a challenging book, but it was rewarding in sort of the world building and the and sort of the mythology of it all. And that kind of it is in many ways the most Jewish book I've ever written. And it reflects in many ways my spiritual journey as well, which is very different than that of my parents, which is very different than that of their parents. And I mean, so I highly recommend if you ever want to write your own religion. It's super fun.
I mean, I like debate. I think it was probably issue 2.
Yeah,
where Kit's male friend hits on Kit, thinking that Kit is a dude, is a guy, and then that brings up the whole like, whoa, how's it going to work out when he works out that I'm a girl, and it just as controversial as that could be, when you think about like the what ifs and all that sort of stuff. For me, it was like, you know what? There's this person, Kit's friend, who likes this person who's Kit, and that's it. To me, that's what it was. That is the bare bones of that story. Is Kit's friend likes Kit.
Yeah, and I felt like Des, who was sort of Kit's foil and rival in much of the series. He's the Loki to Kit's Thor in a lot of ways. And Yeah, it came up as soon as I sort of settled on Kit being a woman in the society. Immediately, sort of Des being sort of the closeted son of the cult leader. That came out pretty fast, and because it was sort of the opposite side of Kit's struggle. In a lot of ways, they have a lot more in common than they think, but they keep these secrets so close to the chest that like they can't even tell their best friend, and so that it curdles their relationship in a lot of ways. Des was my favorite character, right, in the whole series. I felt like every scene I wrote with him, like he stole every scene. Because you can't help but feel for the guy. Like he always comes in second place to his best friend, who he's got a crush on, and yet he's got all this just pressure from his father and pressure from his society, not just to succeed, but to hide a crucial part of who he is. And so he masks it with bravado, and that doesn't cover the pain. And then he tries to mask it with, going out on a limb, and because of through no fault of his own, but because Kit has secrets of her own, shot down and feels humiliated. And so, it's just, seeing that dynamic and watching how dysfunctional it gets. Kit doesn't change a lot in this story. No. She grows, but the world kind of bends around her. Des is the one that grows and changes in a profound way. And so, he's probably my favorite character of the whole book. And we don't have any plans for a sequel at this time. A lot of people ask about it. It's just we got
I think looking at the book, it pretty much is
it's a finite ending. But if we ever found like the right story to tell, I could see Des being that guy. He was a really fun character to write, and probably sort of my favorite kind of anti-hero, I guess, that I've written in some time.
My last statement before Josh jumps in.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing back the flying scary monkeys.
Yeah.
In those words. Thanks a lot. That's like a nightmare that I'm going to have for the rest of the week.
Our winged monkey squadron, which we will have. We had stickers for them and pins for them in the last campaign, and we'll have those available on Backer Kit.
Yeah, let's not stretch that goal. No,
yeah, those will be available on Backer Kit no matter what stretch goals we hit. Those will be back, but we may have some more stuff unveiled.
See, that was my favorite part, was seeing the monkeys.
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun to deal with. It's that's the cool thing about Oz, is there's just so many monsters in mythology that like we have a wide variety of bad guys for Dorothy and company to fight.
Yeah.
For example, I can tell you the last campaign. This is the good thing about having a year in between campaigns. For me, it was always a tightrope act of like how deep do we want to dig? Like there's the Judy Garland film, and that's sort of cultural osmosis. That's like a good starting point without using stuff that's specific to the movie. You can't use ruby slippers legally. Yeah. We used the original novel, accurate silver slippers.
A Phenoscope would sue you.
Yeah, well, it was figuring out, what other mythology do people want? And I'm telling you, for a whole month, people were saying, "Are there Wheelers in the book? Are there Wheelers in the book?" And I was like, "Wow, that feels like a deep cut." So we have Wheelers in the second issue. Okay, we listened. We're getting what you want. We're trying to find ways to kind of like get some Easter eggs and some deeper cuts in the mix. The only character that I'll say that we do not have in this series, we don't have Ozma in this series because Ozma has a lot of history to her. And if we ever did a sequel to this, and let's get the first volume done before we talk about sequels.
I was going to say, focus on the task at hand.
We're going to get that done first. And but if we ever came back for a sequel, that would be a spot for Ozma. She's got a lot of history, and she if we had her, she would have taken over a lot of the book. So we made the choice to sort of leave her on the table for now. And if the demand is there for more, we have plans.
Well, considering the Kickstarter, with 26 days left, you've already raised just shy of 24,000. I have no doubt there will be a demand for more.
That's what we're hoping.
But I'm excited to see what this Kickstarter campaign does, how far you go. If it'll surpass what the first campaign did, it'll just be exciting to watch. So
it's exciting, and the thing is that like we're just excited to see so many people coming back, and I'm trying to put as few expectations and everything as we can. We funded, we're so thrilled about that, and beyond that, it's we're just excited to show people what we have sort of in the chamber for our stretch goals, and for people to get to meet some of our new characters, particularly the Prince of Lions. That's Ruben's favorite character in the book. So seeing some of the fun action that he's got as somebody similar to Dorothy, who is wrestling with the weight of responsibility and leadership. That courage is a very different calculus from when you're fighting for yourself versus when you're the leader of a people. Or Jack Pumpkinhead, who it was one of the big inspirations was Marvel Comics' Taskmaster, sort of a blue collar mercenary with that kind of dry sense of humor and a knack for killing. To Toto. If you liked our take on Toto, you will love what we have. Toto's got a big damn hero moment in issue 2.
That's awesome.
Is probably my favorite part of issue 2. So you're not going to want to miss it. And just getting to explore new corners of the OZ. I mean, we've had our vegetables. We've got full exposition going on here. And so now we're just able to explore, and we're able to do cool new stuff and just have some more fun action beats. Some big monsters, and what happens to this sort of, this ragtag team that Dorothy's put together, and how do they play off one another? That's why I said, if you like a Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VII, sort of that jam band of archetypes, you're going to love what we're doing, especially in issue 2.
Awesome. Well, Johnny, you have anything else for our guest here?
No, I think that pretty much sums it up. I mean, to be fair, I'm still thinking Sesame Street with the Count with the machine gun, mowing people down, count as he goes. 1, 2. I'm like, dude, there's gotta be something in that.
One magazine.
Yeah.
4,672.
That was the guy I'd come up with. The Count, the Count would have to be a drug dealer, and
I'd like to see the Cookie Monster.
1, 2, 3 ounces.
The Cookie Monster throw grenades that look like cookies, so he shouts "cookie" and throws it and boom.
No, he'd be Cocaine Monster.
No. What is this in the 70s? Is that what we're saying? Sesame Street's Detroit 70s style.
You want cocaine?
Oscar the Grouch has got the LSD.
Oscar wouldn't change.
Oscar's going cold turkey. That's why he's so miffed.
Oscar just lives in the trash can. See, you guys aren't convincing me to do this. You're just reminding me why I shouldn't.
I'm all for it.
Oh no, you do that. I will be one of the first backers on that project.
Big Bird's always high.
We'll see. If I run out of some other ideas, maybe I'll come back to the Sesame Street.
I'm there.
But thank you guys for having me, and for anybody watching, you can back the OZ bit.ly/the OZ comic. If you missed our last campaign, we got print and digital catch-up tiers to get you up to speed. We're closing in on our first stretch goal, so we got more fun stuff to come. And if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Pepose D. It's just my last name, first initial. David Pepose Comics on Facebook. You can subscribe to my newsletter, Pep Talks, at bit.ly/pep news, or visit my website, davidpepose.com, which I have to update shortly.
Awesome. And we've included all the links in the description. So once you guys are done watching this, click the link, go back to the project, because
Why wouldn't you?
Right?
Yeah. Click your heels and get back in it.
You're gonna love the book. So thank you guys.
Thank you so much for coming on. Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for speaking to some other English dude. Appreciate that. Yeah.
He's not salty at all. No. Awesome. Well, that's going to be it for this episode of Flipside Focus. Make sure to check out all of our awesome shows on the Undercover Kids Podcast Network, including
TDC, baby, the Definitive Crusade. Woo! And of course, the Old Timers Comic Book Show. Where the hosts aren't old, but the comics most certainly are.
And of course, if you like Magic the Gathering, check out the Jank Think Tank, where Matthew and I talk about all things Magic the Gathering, sets, combos, gameplay, you name it, we talk about it. So, and of course, all of our other shows, head over to undercovercapes.com and comiccrusaders.com for all the awesome reviews, including reviews by Johnny the Machine Hughes right over there.
1300, baby. Go and check it out.
Woo! But that will be it, and we will catch you guys next time
on the flip side.
Visit undercovercapes.com for the latest and greatest podcasts via the Undercover Capes Podcast Network. Also visit our parent company website, comiccrusaders.com, all about comic pop culture.